Matthew told us how, after calling his first 4 disciples, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. Kingdom language can be a challenge for us to wrap our heads around. Most of us have never lived in a kingdom, that is a monarchy. So the word kingdom removes us from our everyday concrete lives into the fairy tale world of kings and knights, princesses and castles. Kingdom makes God's life seem far away and long ago. The words kingdom of heaven further removes God's reign to something up there, disconnected from making breakfast or taking the bus to school. At worst, kingdom is a static, motionless state waiting for our arrival. At best, it's a happy place we visit occasionally, like Disney World, where all our dreams come true. In this way of thinking, kingdom language rarely points us to the disruptive and abundant life that Jesus promises. Until now. Sitting on the mountain with the disciples, Jesus teaches them how to recognize blessedness, about who and what is important in God's kingdom, in God's way of being in the world, the poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and the persecuted are blessed. This way of living was a complete reversal to the actual way of life in the time of Jesus. To be poor in spirit and mournful, peaceful, merciful, and meek, it got you nowhere. If you didn't have family connections, if you didn't have the right status and riches, you were a nobody, ignored and pushed to the margins of society. In our world, when we think of someone who is blessed, we most often think of someone who is wealthy or powerful or famous or successful. Blessedness, at least according to the standards of this world, is most often of the material kind. But Jesus teaches something different. Jesus teaches us how to see how God calls blessed those who are down and out, distressed by their circumstances, passionate about promoting righteousness and working for peace, or persecuted for doing the right things. These are the ones who are blessed in the eyes and heart of God. Now, these statements of blessedness are not entrance requirements for the kingdom, but are declarations of a relationship of blessedness. They are not imperatives or commands. Jesus is not asking the disciples to become poor in spirit, or mourners, or persecuted for righteousness' sake. Instead, they are descriptions of the way things are in God's way of life, in God's reign, in God's kingdom. In these statements of blessedness, Jesus offers consolation and hope to those who are poor in spirit, in mourning or persecuted, to those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, and the peacemakers. In these statements of blessedness, Jesus declares that in him, God's abundant life is made known. In him, the ways of this world are disrupted, turned upside down, or right side up. In him, the forgotten The despised and the justice seekers, the peacemakers, and those who are persecuted for their faith experience God's presence in the here and now as God comes near. For in him we see that God chooses to be on the side of the weak, on the side of the forgotten, on the side of the despised. Jesus urges his disciples then and now to look at those around us differently than the culture does. Rather than measure persons by their possessions, we are we're commanded to see their character, to see them as God's beloved children. Rather than merely take pity on their losses, we are invited to enter into them. Rather than judge their failings, we are invited to forgive and to speak words of peace and love, kindness and mercy. And rather than despise weakness, we are invited to see in it the place where God's children can come together in mercy and kindness. For God reveals God's self to us most clearly, most consistently, most fully at our places of deepest need. These statements of blessedness invite us into a way of being in the world that leads to particular practices. And the first is simplicity. Simplicity is hearing these words of Jesus for what they are, not what we would prefer them to be. To hear the words clearly and know that they are spoken directly to us, directly to you and to me. We have more courage to live when we hear Jesus say, "Blessed are you in every kind of struggle, not because of anything that you do or say, but because I am with you. Blessed are you who are peaceful, a peaceful presence in places of chaos. Blessed are you who open your heart to the needs of others. Blessed are you who show kindness to the stranger and mercy to those on the margins. Blessed are you who walk humbly with your God." Simplicity is the first practice, and hopefulness is the second. Now, there's little disagreement about the lack of hopefulness in our world. You can sense it and feel it as people are feeling this sense of anxiety. Hopelessness leads to anger and to cynicism. Cynicism offers little hope that things will get better, and anger consumes us. These statements of blessedness invite us to an opposite point of view, an opposite way of being in the world, one that is based on hopefulness. We place our hope on Christ, who expressed hope to the hopeless, so that we can approach the world with hopefulness, certain that the day will come when mercy and humility, kindness, peace, and love are the realities of what it means to live. Compassion is the third practice. Compassion has nothing to do with sympathy. It goes much deeper. To have sympathy is to feel sorrowful or to have pity for someone else's misfortune. Henry Nouwen offers this definition: compassion grows when the inner recognition that your neighbor shares your humanity with you. Compassion, suffering with, it cuts through all the walls that might have kept us separate, across the barriers of land and language, wealth and poverty, knowledge and ignorance. Compassion is recognizing that we are all created in God's image, and therefore we are family. We're kin to one another. Compassion is having eyes to perceive in the needs of the neighbor, not a nuisance or even something to be pitied, but rather the marks of blessedness to which we are privileged to attend. Simplicity and hopefulness and compassion, three spiritual practices which can help us live each day as faithful follower of Jesus, who joins him in proclaiming the good news of God's way in our daily life. And when we do, we recognize that God always comes where we least expect God to be, amid our brokenness, in order to bless that which the world refuses to bless, to love what the world calls unlovable, and to redeem that which the world does not believe merits saving. In these statements of blessedness, Jesus helps us realize that God's kingdom isn't a place far away, but is found whenever we honor each other as God's children, bear each other's burdens, bind each other's wounds, and meet each other's needs. To be human is to be fragile and vulnerable. And it turns out that the surprising character of God isn't to reject these things, but rather to gather them into a divine embrace of blessedness. This brings to mind a writing by the 16th century theologian Teresa of Avila. Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks, with compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. Yours are the body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Amen.